The Sikorsky H-34 is a piston-engined military helicopter that was originally designed by American aircraft manufacturer Sikorsky for the United States Navy for service in the anti-submarine warfare role. It has seen extended use when adapted to turbine power by the British licensee as the Westland Wessex and Sikorsky as the later S-58T. Various H-34s served, mostly as medium transports, on every continent with the armed forces of 25 countries from combat in Algeria, the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, and throughout Southeast Asia, in roles such as saving flood victims, recovering astronauts, fighting fires, and carrying presidents. As one of the last piston-powered helicopter designs before its replacement by turbine-powered types such as the UH-1 Huey and CH-46C Knight, it would see a remarkably long run of 2,108 H-34s produced between 1953 and 1970. Development. The Sikorsky S-58 was developed as a lengthened and more powerful version of the Sikorsky or UH-19 Chickasaw, with a similar nose, but with a tail dragger rear fuselage and landing gear, rather than the high tail, four-post pattern. It retained the nose-mounted piston engine with the drive shaft passing through the cockpit placed high above the cargo compartment. The aircraft first flew on March 8, 1954. The first production aircraft was ready in September and entered in service for the United States Navy, initially designated HSS-1 Seabat and HUS-1 Seahorse under the U.S. Navy designation system for U.S. Navy, United States Marine Corps and United States Coast Guard aircraft. The U.S. Army and Marine Corps, respectively, ordered it in 1955 and 1957. Under the United States Army's aircraft designation system, also used by the United States Air Force, the helicopter was designated H-34. The U.S. Army also applied the name Choctaw to the helicopter. In 1962, under the new Unified Duty Aircraft Designation System, the Seabat was redesignated H-34, the Seahorse as the UH-34, and the Choctaw as the CH-34. Roles included utility transport, anti-submarine warfare, search and rescue, and VIP transport. In its standard configuration, transport versions could carry 12 to 16 troops, or 8 stretcher cases if utilized in the MEDEVAC role, while VIP transports carried significantly fewer people and significantly greater comfort. A total of 135 H-34s were built in the U.S. and assembled by Sud Aviation in France. 166 were produced under license in France by Sud Aviation for the French Air Force, Navy and Army Aviation. The CH-34 was also built and developed under license from 1958 in the United Kingdom by Westland Aircraft as the turbine-engined Wessex, which was used by the Royal Navy and Royal Air Force. The RN Wessex was fitted out with weapons and ASW equipment for use in an anti-submarine role. The RAF used the Wessex, with turboshaft engines, as an air-sea rescue helicopter and as troop transporter. Wessexes were also exported to other countries and produced for civilian use. Operational history. Vietnam War. French evaluations on the reported ground fire vulnerabilities of the CH-34 may have influenced the U.S. Army's decision to deploy the CH-21 Shawnee to Vietnam instead of the CH-34, pending the introduction into widespread service of the Bell UH-1 Iroquois. U.S. Army H-34s did not participate in Vietnam, and did not fly in the assault helicopter role, however a quantity was supplied to the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. These saw little use due to a lack of spare parts and maintenance. Its higher availability and reliability due to its simplicity compared to the newer helicopters led Marines to ask for it by name. The phrases "give me a HUS," "get me a HUS," and "cut me a HUS" entered the U.S. Marine Corps vernacular, being used even after the type was no longer in use to mean "help me out." USM CH-34s were also among the first gunship helicopters trialed in theater, being fitted with a temporary Kit 1, comprising two M60C machine guns and two 19-shot 2.75-inch rocket pods. The operations were met with mixed enthusiasm, and the armed H-34s, known as Stingers, were quickly phased out. The TK-1 kit would form the basis of the TK-2 kit used on the UH-1E helicopters of the USMC. Post-Vietnam War, the H-34 remained in service with United States Army and Marine Corps aviation units well into the late 1960s, and was standard equipment in Marine Corps Reserve, Army Reserve and Army National Guard aviation units until replaced by the UH-1 Iroquois utility helicopter. Sikorsky production ceased in 1968, with 1,821 built. On September 3, 1973, the last flight of a USMC UH-34 occurred as Bureau number 147,191 was flown to MCAS New River. All H-34 helicopters were retired from service in the U.S. military by the early 1970s. France bought 134 Choctaws in parts from the United States and assembled by Sud Aviation. A further 166 were manufactured later locally for the French Army Light Aviation, French Naval Aviation and Air Force, these again produced by Sud Aviation. The last flight of this helicopter in the French Navy was done in 1979, in the 35F Squadron. United Kingdom. The Wessex was used as a naval helicopter and as a general-purpose helicopter for the Army. South Vietnam, the H-34 was the primary VNAF helicopter until replaced by the Bell UH-1 Huey. Israel. The S-58 flew combat missions after the end of the Six Days War, mainly against Palestinians infiltrating Israel or against their bases in Jordan. On March 21, 1968, they participated in the Battle of Karami, bringing Israeli troops in and out as well as evacuating the wounded. This was the last operation of the S-58 as it was retired shortly later, replaced by the Bell 205 and/or copyright Rospartiel Superflan. Civilian use. The H-34's lift capacity was just sufficient to lift a Mercury space capsule. In 1961, the hatch of Mercury Redstone 4 was prematurely detached and the capsule was filled with seawater. The extra weight was too much for the H-34 and the capsule, Liberty Bell 7, was emergency released and sank in deep water. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, S-58T turbine-powered helicopters were operated by New York Helicopters in scheduled passenger airline service between JFK International Airport and East 34th Street Heliport, New York. New York Airways also operated scheduled S-58ET passenger service from Newark Liberty Airport. H-34 have been used by forest firefighting contractors in Ontario. At least one S-58 was purchased for civilian use by Oregon-based Columbia Helicopters in the 1960s. In 1968, an S-58 was used to remove the wreckage of a Bell 47G2 helicopter from the top of Uluru in Central Australia. The 1980s television series Riptide featured an S-58T called the Screaming Mimi. The special turbine engine cowling, together with a face paint scheme, was used to good effect. Variants: H-34A, U.S. Army version of the HSS-1 powered by a 1,525 horsepower R-1820-84, redesignated CH-34A in 1962, 359 built and 21 transferred from the U.S. Navy. JH-34A, designation for H-34A used for weapon tests. VH-34A, staff transport conversions of H-34A, H-34B, H-34 is converted with detail changes, became CH-34B in 1962. H-34C, H-34B design with detail changes converted from H-34 as, became CH-34C in 1962. JH-34C, designation for CH-34C used for weapon tests. VH-34C, staff transport conversions of CH-34C. HH-34D, designation applied to aircraft given USAF serials to be transferred under MAP and MDAP. LH-34D, HUS-1L redesignated in 1962, UH-34D, HUS-1 redesignated in 1962 and 54 new build. VH-34D, HUS-1Z redesignated in 1962, UH-34E, HUS-1A redesignated in 1962, HH-34F, HUS-1G redesignated in 1962, YSH-34G, YHSS-1 redesignated in 1962, SH-34G, HSS-1 redesignated in 1962, SH-34H, HSS-1F redesignated in 1962, YSH-34J. YHSS-1N redesignated in 1962, SH-34J, HSS-1N redesignated in 1962, UH-34J, SH-34J without ASW equipment for cargo and training purposes. HH-34J, ex-USN UH-34JS operated by the U.S. Air Force, VH-34J, staff transport conversions of SH-34J. Ex-HSS-1 Bat, 3 Sikorsky S-58s for evaluation by the U.S. Navy, redesignated YHSS-1 then YSH-34G in 1962. HSS-1 Bat, production anti-submarine model for the U.S. Navy, redesignated SH-34G in 1962, 215 built, HSS-1F Bat, 1 HSS-1 re-engined with 2 YT-58G is a flying test bed, redesignated SH-34H in 1962. YHSS-1N Bat, 1 HSS-1 converted as the HSS-1N prototype, redesignated YSH-34J in 1962. HSS-1N Bat, night bad weather version of the HSS-1 with improved avionics and autopilot, redesignated SH-34J in 1962, 167 built. HUS-1 Seahorse, utility transport version of the HSS-1 for the U.S. Marine Corps, redesignated UH-34D in 1962, 462 built. HUS-1A Seahorse, 40 HUS-1s fitted with amphibious pontoons, redesignated UH-34E in 1962. HUS-1G Seahorse, United States Coast Guard version of the HUS-1, redesignated HH-34F in 1962, 6 built. HUS-1L Seahorse, 4 HUS-1s converted for Antarctic operations with VXE-6, redesignated LH-34D in 1962. HUS-1Z Seahorse, 7 HUS-1s fitted with VIP interior for the Executive Flight Detachment, redesignated VH-34D in 1962. S-58, commercial designation for basic cargo variant, S-58B, commercial designation for improved cargo variant, S-58C, commercial passenger transport airliner version, S-58D, commercial airliner freighter version, S-58D, commercial conversion to turboshaft power by Sikorsky, Orlando helicopter, and California helicopter. Kit uses Pratt & Whitney Canada .63 twin-pack turboshaft with special nose cowling featuring distinctive twin rectangular air intakes. S-58 Helicamper, commercial conversion, fitted with a Wright Cycloner 1820-24 engine. Orlando Airliner, commercial conversion. 18-seat passenger transport helicopter. Westland Wessex, license production and development in the United Kingdom. Operators, an Argentina, Argentine Air Force, Argentine Naval Aviation, a Belgium, Belgian Air Force, Belgian Navy, a Brazil, Brazilian Navy, a Canada, Royal Canadian Air Force, Canadian Armed Forces, a Chile, Chilean Navy, a Costa Rica, Ministry of Public Security, a France, French Army, French Navy, a West Germany, German Air Force, German Army, German Navy, a Haiti, Haitian Air Corps, a Indonesia, Indonesian Air Force, an Italy, Italian Air Force, a Israel, Israeli Air Force, a Japan, Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, a Laos, Royal Lao Air Force, a Netherlands, Royal Netherlands Navy, a Nicaragua, Fuerza or Copyright Res Sandinista. A Philippines, Philippine Air Force, a South Vietnam, Vietnam Air Force, a Republic of China Army, a Thailand, Royal Thai Air Force, a United States, Air America, United States Air Force, United States Army, United States Marine Corps, United States Navy, United States Coast Guard, a Uruguay, Uruguayan Navy, Accidents and incidents. July 27, 1960, Chicago Helicopter Airways Flight 698 to S-58C registered N879 crashed into Forest Home Cemetery, Forest Park, Illinois, United States with the loss of 11 passengers and 2 crew. The investigation concluded that the helicopter became uncontrollable as a result of structural disintegration in flight caused by a fatigue failure of the main rotor blade. March 13, 2011, Sikorsky S-58ET, N33602, suffered an engine failure, descended and veered off the side of an office building in El Segundo, California, while lifting an external load from the roof. The commercial pilot was seriously injured. The helicopter was substantially damaged and consumed by a post-impact fire. The helicopter was registered to Heliflight, Incorporated, and operated by Ares Helicopters. Aircraft on display. France, HSS-1, number 182, is on display at the Base de Copyright Ronautique Navale d'Ares, the military part of the Toulon-High-Ares Airport in France. Serving until 1977 with 31F Squadron, it was one of the last operational H-34s in French naval aviation. Now restored, number 182 is displayed in the typical navy blue color of the French Navy's helicopters of this time period. Thailand, S-58T, H4K64/30/20117 at the Royal Thai Air Force Museum, Bangkok, Thailand. UH-34D Seahorse 150,556 at Royal Thai Air Force Museum, Bangkok, Thailand. United States, UH-34D Seahorse on display on the flight deck of the USA Yorktowner, CV-10, at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum in Charleston, South Carolina. H-34C Choctaw, SN054496, 1954. Located at Carolinas Aviation Museum in Charlotte, North Carolina. UH-34JC Bat, BU 145694, built 1958, at the Wings of Freedom Aviation Museum, Naval Air Station Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. UH-34D Seahorse serial BU 150553, built 1963. Is on display on the hangar deck of the USS Hornet at the former NAS Alameda at Alameda, California. UH-34D, BU 150227, is on display at the National Museum of Naval Aviation at Naval Air Station Pensacola, Florida. UH-34D is on display at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum's Udvar-Hazy Center. LH-34D Seabat, BU 145717, is on display at the New England Air Museum, Bradley International Airport, Windsor Locks, CT. Sh-34J Seahorse, is on display at Pueblo Wiesbrod Aircraft Museum, Pueblo, Colorado, next to Pueblo Airport. VH-34C, Army Ser. Number 57 to 1684, is on display at the Pima Air and Space Museum adjacent to Davis-Monthan AFB in Tucson, Arizona. Specifications. General characteristics: crew, 2, capacity, 16 troops or 8 stretchers, length, 56 feet 8.5 inches, rotor diameter, 56 feet 0 in, height, 15 feet 11 in, disk area, 2,463 FTA squared, empty weight, 7,900 pounds, max takeoff weight, 14,000 pounds, power plant, 1A, Wright R1820-84 radial engine, 1,525 horsepower, performance, maximum speed, 123 miles per hour, range, 293 kilometers, service ceiling, 4,905 feet, armament, various, C. Also. Related development, Sikorsky H-19, Westland Wessex, Piasecki PA-97, aircraft of comparable role, configuration and era, MILMI 4, related lists, list of military aircraft of the United States, list of helicopters, list of civil aircraft, references, notes. Bibliography. Further reading, now a plus or minus is padding. Jorge Felix. Sikorsky, Juan Carlos. Now a plus or minus is Padin, Jorge Felix, ed. Sikorsky S-55 per hour 19 and S-58 per ton. Sirian Argentina 6. Bahia Blanca, Argentina, Vites Aaron Avails. ISBN A978-987-1682-13-3. Retrieved August 24, 2014. External links, VNAF King B-219th Squadron History Fact Sheet, HELIS.com Sikorsky S-58 HSS1/HUS1 Database.